What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The celestial compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Beal. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Beal.
Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome back to Celestial Compass. We're going to have a lot of fun today. But before we get to the fun part, I want to talk about what's going on in August. And just as a reminder, you'll find my full forecasts at omtimes.com and at my website, empowermentunlimited.net, and my YouTube channel, which is Professional Aquarian. You might have noticed the show was a little delayed as we're broadcasting this. Mercury has stationed retrograde. It's his third retrograde of the year. And this is a time when we get the opportunity to go back over situations and stick the letters RE in front of pretty much every verb you can think of. Revisit, review, you name it. And it's stationing retrograde at the very beginning of the sign of Virgo, which is all about details and cleaning things up and organizing. And I would suggest to you that while Mercury is in Virgo, which it will be until the 14th, then it flips back into Leo, that you avail yourself of the opportunity to do things like clean up your desk. This past weekend, I threw out papers that have been piled up for 4 or 5 years, and I can actually see my desktop. So I challenge you to do that. Also, just be discerning. Use all of the Virgo energy that's on tap and look at things from a perspective of how could this be cleaner? How could this be done better? How does this benefit me? Healthy boundaries, healthy choices, very important. And hang on to the Virgo in the sky. Venus is also going to be in the mix because 2/3 of the way through the month, we have incredible cosmic machinery locking into place that is going to bring a lot to a head that's been building for several months, since the end of April, since the end of May. And this involves 2 dynamic configurations called T-squares, which happen when there are 2 bodies opposite each other and one that's monkey in the middle that's getting all the pressure from the opposition. On the Aquarius full moon, which is August 19, the sun and the moon, retrograde Mercury with the sun, will be bearing down on Uranus in Taurus, and which is the cosmic change agent, also the ruler of Aquarius. So you may see some really crazy things happening. August 19 is a date that might be in your mind like something's happening then. You may see really unexpected things happening. You might be seeing your own emotional reactions to all kinds of things that have been going on for the past few months finally come releasing out of you. And it's probably a good thing to finally move past this. But at the same time, there is a second of these dynamic configurations called a T-square. And this one involves Jupiter, which expands everything it touches, and Mars, which also amplifies what Jupiter is up to in the sign of communication, words, social media, options, multitasking, running every which way. They're going to be squared by Saturn in Pisces. So Jupiter is expansion, Saturn is constraint, restriction, acting like an adult, making choices. But there's one more piece, and that is Venus in Virgo, Earth Mama energy, looking at how we can better society, how we can clean things up, Venus and Saturn together are going to be slamming at that onto that Jupiter Mars conjunction, and something's going to give, something's going to blow. There may be some level of containment that happens in your life. If you've been running in 15 directions, you may choose to run in 3. And whatever this is, you'll get to revisit again on Christmas Eve. So this is a really important month. This activity that I've talked about hits the charts of all kinds of people in the news, everybody pretty much that you can think of. So watch for the rearranging and the revelations and the big switcheroos to come. So monkey wrenches and plot twists on the way. So what do? We mind our own business. We take care of our own little corner of the universe. And as the Leo new moon that kicked off the month says, we have some fun. And that is what today's show is about. There, I have segued into it. Most of you know, or many of you know, that I have a background as a food writer and also a book out about it. And I love divination tools. So when I run across something that combines these two interests, I'm always very curious. And I have today as a guest one of the creators of a beautiful new deck that puts food in tarot, Danielle Mainas, who is an astrologer and a chef. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi.
I'm glad you're here. Could you, I like to, and you have, well, you back up. To set the stage here, I would say most people listening to the show have had the experience of hanging out with some friends and having a nice meal and chatting and brainstorming like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if we ... But you and 2 of your friends actually took this into the physical reality stage. So you teamed with one friend, Lindsey Newton, who is a former CFO, so she understands some of the business end of it, and a marketing director named Megan Morris. So she brought that, and you brought my understanding is the knowledge of the metaphysical end of it. First off, what is your deck called?
Our deck is called the Cacio e Pepe Tarot, which means cheese and pepper in Italian. We are all of European descent, but Megan specifically actually is Italian American. So while we stayed in our own lane from a food perspective, a lot of, Italian things really came through.
So you 3 have known each other for a while? You're pre-existing friends?
We've known each other for a while. We actually, so Lindsay's actually a current CFO, and specifically for women-run businesses and with a strong focus in food. So that's sort of been her background. Megan is a nutritionist by education and also works in marketing and on multiple different projects. She's incredible at all of those things. And I've cooked in many kitchens and professionally and have studied astrology and tarot since I could read. But yeah, we've all been friends for a long time and would get together and specifically to do things like make altars and pull cards and eat alongside those activities.
I'm not sure anybody listening to this can possibly relate to what you're talking about here. So at some point, 6+ years ago, it went from, oh, let's just pull some cards and have some fun to, hey, maybe we could do this.
Yeah, it was actually, I remember it as a text message of listening to, Lindsay had been at a party and was describing this cheese plate of this, she's in San Francisco tech world. So she's at some big expensive party and she was saying this cheese plate just had so much attitude and that you just wouldn't believe the manchego on this plate. And we were laughing. And at this point we had been specifically the 3 of us working a lot with Kim Kranz's Animal Spirit deck when we were together. pulling a lot of the animal cards. And so the idea actually first began as an oracle deck about food. And the joke was absolutely somebody needs to do this. And certainly none of us have the bandwidth. But then a spreadsheet was started and couldn't stop the text thread. So it's just been hot and heavy ever since.
That is hysterical. You have in the introduction to the little book that comes with it, and in this case, I would say to people, you ought to read the book. I often tell people, don't read the book, just start reading the cards. No, I think you need to read this book. Tell me about your philosophy of food, because my experience has been that food is about a whole lot more than nutrition.
Oh, absolutely. The idea for the food background was really not to, we do so much demonizing of food. We do so much good and bad when it comes to food. And our philosophy here was that there is no good and bad or one size fits all solution for any one person and also for any one moment. You know, you need different things for your body at different times of the year, different times of the day. You know, what may not sit with you well at one point in your life could totally switch. I don't know if you've ever had a food sensitivity that just went away, or you could always eat eggs and all of a sudden you just can't. And so this is really more about recognizing that emotions and feelings and situations pass through us similarly. You know, they won't, all things pass, all things change. And there really isn't a right or wrong. And you can really see that belief through this deck in our choice not to use reversals, actually. So we didn't write reverse meanings sort of on purpose, that there aren't necessarily right or wrong ways to interact with food, or in this case, with the feelings that the food represents.
The feelings that the food represents, that's good, because that comes through in a lot of your choices, actually. The physical cards, before we get to the substance of it, the physical cards are absolutely gorgeous. It is it's a photo montage deck. There we
Yeah.
go. So the images are, well, anyway, who came up with the idea to use photo montage
Yeah. So
or
we
collage?
were really excited. Yeah, photo collage. We were really excited about maybe hiring an artist, you know, someone who says they are an artist because they are a professional artist. That's kind of what we were going to do. And we actually did interview one particular person that we all really loved. But as we were going through it, and 78 cards in the tarot gives you lots to talk about. So endless chatter about food and its relationship potentially with tarot. And as we were doing this and kind of fleshing out these ideas, it started to become important to think about, okay, well, what would dumpling look like? What could it possibly look like? Which represents the chariot from traditional tarot. And it seemed really important to start to create a visual so that we could eventually show an artist. I know some folks will just create a spreadsheet of image, sort of image direction for an artist. But we wanted to make a little bit of a visual one. So the idea of photo collage was like, let's just kind of rough and dirty, put together some images showing the colors and the energy that we're going for. And they turned out to be kind of good, and they were working for us. So some of actually Ginger, which is the Hierophant, which is one of my favorite cards, it's really successful visually, was one of the first ones we did. It was just a real quick and dirty kind of art experiment of, how to represent Ginger. And we realized, okay, maybe we should just keep doing this in-house, which presented its own sort of set of issues, because then I was like, oh no, I have to do 78 pieces of art. And I didn't know that I could do that, or that I was an artist. And I certainly didn't know that I had the tools to do that. So it was interesting, but that's how we came across it, really just as a way to start to communicate what was in our heads. And then when it worked, we just said, okay, well, we may take some years, but we'll do it.
And it took about 6 years. Is that correct?
It did. And the art piece really started hilariously really started maybe a year and a half into the thought process of it all. The art piece came up, once we had already had some really good ideas about which cards were going to represent which tarot archetype. And originally, again, we thought this might be an oracle deck where we were just could choose the number of cards and the foods. But it became clear at a certain point that we really wanted to use the structure of tarot. And there's some other ideas too about demystifying and making tarot accessible in this way too that were exciting to us. So it's kind of how it all came together.
Now, unlike if someone were just to look at the deck, after they get through the first 22, they would go, but there's an image that just has a word on it. And it's just a thing. How did you decide? What was the process that led to not labeling the suits? Because there are correlations to the suits, which is why I tell people you do want to read the book.
Right. So why did we just choose, for example, like this is the Ace of Wands, roasted mallow, but we didn't separate it into the suits?
Yes.
It's a really good question. I think a big part of it is just how difficult that might be for someone whose brain doesn't work that way, or for someone who thinks that that they don't have any business in astrology or tarot. So as a Gemini, I love a system. I love a spreadsheet. I would, I have all of the, I have all of those systems in my mind. I love to keep that information in my brain. So I love a structure. And I love that there's the 4 elements, and it really helps me remember these, what they mean. But that's also because I'm inherently drawn to the tarot. So someone who I believe we all have the ability to hear messages. But someone who may feel like not invited to the tarot party, as it is, the ancient sort of versions of it that we may feel a little bit inaccessible to them. We figured let's go ahead and really include this information, both the Smith Rider-Waite associations as well as the Thoth, just in case, because I feel like we also have a lot of teachers that primarily work from the Thoth deck. Let's include them, but not scare people with them. We also were starting to go down this, we were getting almost too into the pun of it all, which was almost making it feel a little silly, right? So we were, for us, and we were already so silly and very humor motivated. I mean, it's a deep deck, but it's funny. There's a lot of little funny, lighthearted things about it. And so it felt a little bit like we were
on my list of things to talk about.
Oh, so fun. I love it. So we decided to keep that part of it simple, since what we were doing was already kind of complex. We're like, just really simplify it. And the idea is that you can go in the book and you can get into the fine print all the way at the very bottom. We thought, it'll be a works cited, and you can find out that there's an Ace of Wands. But if you have no idea what that term means, and if it scares you, it's not the first thing. So if you are into tarot and you've never thought about a roasted marshmallow being an Ace of Wands, that's kind of fun. And if you have no idea what it's about, then it could be your lead-in to tarot. Maybe you will one day own 100 or 1,000 tarot decks. So that was kind of the idea. It's a gateway drug.
It is a gateway drug. I have here, some are so funny. I started noticing when I did look at the correlations in the back, that there are certain cards, either ones that are full of conflict or of incredible gratification, that had things that made me just smile attached to them. The 5 of Cups being milk and cookies.
Yeah. Could make me cry thinking about it because it's a tough energy.
It's in the regular deck, for those that it doesn't spring to mind to, that's where there's a person who's leaned over looking at 3 cups that are spilled on the ground. There are 2 behind, and it often means a time of mourning or disillusionment or needing to grieve, but all is not lost. What was the spin you put on it with milk and cookies?
The idea of grief being in some ways nonlinear. So when grief strikes, in the real moment that it strikes, we often don't, at least as adults, we often don't have the opportunity to just like get straight in bed with a box of Oreos or a sleeve of Oreos and just lose it. We really don't have that opportunity, or it's not really part of most cultural social structures that I think we're most familiar with. Um, you know, Typically we get into the work of what grief brings about, but not the actual emotion. And so this card is really an invitation to sit with grief in a way that you haven't yet. So to almost say, okay, you know, this really hard thing happened, and I know that it represents grief, but instead of letting grief come and sort of get me and catch me off guard, what if I just kind of go to it and have a moment about this? And it doesn't prescribe that you go and sit in a bed with milk and cookies. But that idea of like really being tender with yourself and giving yourself that really safe, cozy container to kind of let yourself cry or let yourself, feel sad. One of the works cited in this is Beaches, the movie, which Hershey and Bette Midler. I I think that was probably the first movie I ever cried in. I think that will make you cry right away, or Steel Magnolias. Or if you just want a real quick cry, you could listen to I Can't Make You Love Me by Bonnie Raitt, which kind of, I think could get anyone, no matter what time of day and where you are in your life. So yeah, it's really about recognizing those spaces in ourselves that we could maybe grieve a little bit more.
And giving yourself permission.
Yeah, giving yourself permission. Yeah, and sort of giving those examples are meant to sort of be like, do you need to cry? Do you need to have a moment? Maybe you do. It doesn't have to be about grief that's happening right now.
Well, I noticed, so lemon water is the 5 of Swords.
I like that we're getting into the 5s, Kathy.
Well, I noticed that there was a through line in the 5s. 5s are uncomfortable cards.
Yes, yeah. I think about the through line of the 5s, those types of things a lot with this deck, because we didn't know until we laid it all out. We didn't see that until the end.
It just happened.
It just happened. Oh yeah, it just happened. That was not on purpose. But yeah, what was your reflection on 5 of Swords?
Lemon water. Sometimes you just need to get it out of your system, whatever it is, and lemon water will help you do it.
Yeah, right away. Kind of like a real quick, no shame spiral. Just get thee to some lemon water.
Oh, everyone needs this deck. And then bread for the 5 of Pentacles, which is the 2 people beaten up sitting in front of a church with the lights on the inside.
Yeah.
Some people say it's a dark night of the soul. Bread. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our teachers, Lindsey Mack, great tarot reader and creator of the system Tarot for the Wild Soul, really talks about how the 5 of Pentacles, bread, as it is in Cacio Pepe Tarot, is a bridge from one place to another in our understanding of a material situation. And it's in this moment of the unknown. And one of her examples is actually, waiting for the check in the mail, but it's really a feeling of being forgotten. And it doesn't mean that you have been forgotten, but there's this kind of bridge that you're going over. You're going from one place to another, and in it, the only real thing for you to do is to stay in your physical body and to stay present. That dark night of the soul, you don't want to go and get lost in the far shadowy corners of it all. What can you do to stay present? It's like when we see a movie and there's someone who's stuck in some terrible physical position, and you notice that they start doing something to pass the time with something physical in front of them, right? Maybe they make friends with a cockroach, or they, they start counting, or they're with their body in some way that helps them kind of tether and buoy to that moment. And that's what bread is about, is like putting your hands into something, working with it. I was also inspired by the Mother Peace deck, which is Karen Vogel and Vicky Noble, and the Five of Pentacles, or Five of Discs, as it's named in that particular deck, is character making tamales. We were really, really thoughtful to not use foods that aren't in our cultural lineage. I think that people will find those associations for themselves and link back to foods that may be in their lineage, in their family line, in their experience. But it was important for us to kind of stay in our own lane on those things. But we were inspired a little bit by that particular card in the Mother Peace deck.
For completeness, I just want to briefly touch on the other 5, and then we'll take our break. And that would be the 5 of Wands, chili.
Chili! Yeah. So chili is really about, the mess of creativity. The part where everything is out and you're like, hold on, where's my glue stick? Did I put the top back on it? It's kind of a little bit of a disaster. It's the idea of some of our favorite musicians being messy, maybe in their lives, perhaps being a little bit conflicted at certain times, or, things that may show up as looking a little bit unhealthy. But that is in many ways part of the creative process. We argue in this deck. So that's kind of how chili is. You're kind of like, you start with a recipe. It's pretty straightforward. Things, no one's measuring out the cumin. You're just kind of pinch here, throw there. You don't know how long it's going to have time to simmer before you eat it. It's a little bit of that energy.
And then there are the countless arguments, which is part of 5 of Wands, over what is proper chili. Is it really chili? Everyone has their own definition of it in the recipe, and there's a lot.
Kathy. Absolutely. Well, you said you've all known each other for a while. Megan and Lindsay and I have been attending a chili cook-off together for many years now, which Megan actually has the trophy for, and I believe, COVID messed some things up there with our, tracking of who is in charge, but I still keep my 2nd and 3rd place ribbons on the fridge, and I don't have a 1st place ribbon, never have, but it's funny, people laugh. They're like, why do you have this 2nd place ribbon? So, and I'm like, I'm really proud of that 2nd place ribbon. Yeah. So the idea of the competition of chili, and it's kind of cutthroat, the chili cook-off.
Yeah, it is very much so. All right, we're going to take a break. Hang on, everyone. Come on back.
Home Times TV.
Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again? empowermentunlimited.net.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. Our guest, we're having a conversation today with our guest, Danielle Mainas, who is one of the creators of a new tarot deck that has a food theme to it, Cacio e Pepe, which means cheese and pepper in Italian. There were a couple of other individual cards that just struck me. I just thought were hysterical. Birthday cake for the equivalent to the Four of Wands.
Yeah.
That was very, very amusing. Nine of Cups, which is often the wish card or ultimate fulfillment, chocolate bar. Yes, I think a lot of people will say, oh, yeah. And Three of Swords, which could be a card of conflict. Banana bread.
Yeah, I know.
How
And
that
now-
happened.
I know. And the way we talk about banana bread now is so funny. I actually did see a meme the other day about like when you're, you know, it was kind of a joke, but it was like when you're in deep despair, and it was just like like the Google search of like banana bread recipe, or like where is the closest banana bread to me. We unearthed Megan, who is responsible for the writing in the book, and thank you for mentioning that it's worth reading, because it really is. It really does explain how all this
It really
works. And
explains.
also, I think it's good. I mean, I use it. I use this book now, even when I pull tarot cards from other decks, as a way to think about the meanings. But Megan had unearthed in writing that banana bread was the #1 most searched recipe during the beginning of COVID pandemic, and that really struck. And then so there's a lot of really research that she did for all of the cards, but this one really showed up as I think the line in it that really gets across is that it's the thing you need to eat when you have to chew and cry at the same time, which maybe that's just me who has chewed and cried at the same time. But if anyone has ever done that, you know, just like taking a break during some deep sadness to like put some food in your mouth. Yeah, banana bread. And when folks pull that card who are particularly going through something or have a close one that's, you know, really in a struggle, it seems to really speak to them. It's one of the cards, and it's, you know, it's right up really, really have been, it's weird to say, one of our most, you know, kind of popular cards. Yeah, three of swords.
That's so funny. My reaction was that people very frequently make banana bread when they go, oh no, my bananas, no, look how this happened. They're old. I got to do something with them. Ah, so
It's true.
I was looking at it as a reaction. There we go.
Yeah, it's true. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're told to do with it, is to be resourceful. And so it could have been a card about being resourceful, but it really also seems like maybe it was that person in your life that made that banana bread and was so resourceful that created a container for you to feel maybe more of your feelings. That's where we landed with banana bread.
That is so funny. And for some reason, that has made me think of another one that just made me go, this is perfect. Salami.
Oh,
This
love
is the answer to the Hanged Man. Look at it. It's just hanging there. That's what salami does. It hangs and it ages.
It hangs and it ages. And another genius of Megan Morris was the line in this one was, time will cure you, for, you know, a cured meat. And that is really, you know, kind of what this card is, right? This is really, I think of the Hanged One or the Hanged Man or salami as actually the process of dying. And then when we get to death, it's kind of more the alchemical magic of what happens to the body once it's dead. But when I think of the work of dying and how hard it is to die and the waiting, and the liminality of it, it does feel a little bit more like the Hanged One or salami. So yeah, I'm glad that one jumped out at you. It was
Oh yeah. Well, there were many. I mean, creme brulee is the tower,
yeah.
which is perfect because you got to crack it to eat it.
Got to crack it to eat it. And this idea, another big one here was wanting to reframe for folks that do use, because I mean, I've had tower experiences where I've pulled the tower and then truly everything has kind of fallen apart, and I haven't known until years later that it all was, taking me in a place. But no matter what, it can only be helpful to kind of soften the blow of receiving a message that your, subterranean foundations are going to be cracking and potentially peeling away. So the idea of offering something a little sweet and something a little lighthearted here is not to say, oh no, it's all good, it's all for the best. It's really more a way of just making it a little easier on the eyes and a little bit easier to digest the idea of pulling tarot. Of course, with Lindsay and Megan and I, if we, pull the tower, if we pull creme brulee, we're like, I'm having a creme brulee time. It's immediately means the tower to us now, but.
Understood. Well, one other thing I want to point out to people, if we've just shown you a few of these, some people who've been around for a while might find themselves thinking about another photo collage deck from the 90s by James Wanless, the Voyager Tarot. But whereas his are all over the place, and I can pick up a card 35 years later, a card that I've looked at forever, and then suddenly see something in it that I hadn't noticed before because they are so intricate. These are much more focused. For example, this is the Ace of Cups. And who would argue? Who would argue that Pain de Chocolat is not the Ace of Cups? I mean, come on. Good grief. Breakfast for dinner. Now there's a concept. I mean, you can even just look at these. You don't even know anything. They immediately evoke very strong reactions. Like, oh, I got it. I mean, has anyone ever made pancakes for dinner?
I mean, was that a big thing in your life ever? Breakfast for dinner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huge.
Sure. And then here are pancakes. Yeah. So, and
another thing about how many breakfast foods we have, Kathy, it's a problem. We have a carb problem and a breakfast problem.
Yeah. Well, the other ants on a log with a giant rainbow in the background. I also noticed that you have, instead of try this layout, you have a very interesting a page and a half or so of suggested questions. And some of them are ones people might think of. And then the food related wit comes in. What is still ripening on the vine? I think I may use that with some people. Or what am I being asked to RSVP to? Have you found certain ones to be particularly useful?
Yeah. Well, I think we often, the easiest, most accessible spread, I think most people know about is kind of that past, present, future. And we wanted to remove ourselves a little bit from the idea of time, and we joked about how, today we were a little bit late to come on because time doesn't really exist. And we were joking about that in our pre-interview. But we didn't want to use so much of talking about the past and the future for a couple reasons. Number one, we don't want folks to think that this deck is only used for predicting the future. I'm sure there's folks out there that have that level of clair that can do that. But I'm not sure, we aren't convinced that that is something everyone has spent a lot of time or is here to work on right now in this lifetime. The idea of being able to predict the future. So we really, in the theme of wanting this to be for everyone, we wanted to have concepts that weren't about being so mystical that you could predict the future, or also trying to reframe the past in any type of particular way. So if you think about the question, what am I being asked to RSVP to? It is in a way we are talking about what is coming in the future, a party, an event, a something, an invitation for something that will occur in the future. But we are not using that language of future. It's really more about how can you prepare now, right? Because the RSVP thing is the thing you do in the present moment to sort of set an intention about the future. So all of our questions that we created are really about that, about staying in the present, whether or not you're focusing on the past or the future. Same with something ripening on the vine, right? The idea there is that something is coming in the future, but you are in the present moment while it is still ripening on the vine, and you're sort of maybe aware that it's not quite here yet, right? So they're all meant to kind of help keep you in the present moment and sort of distract us from the idea of like, well, what's coming and what's over? What can I say goodbye to? Because, life just doesn't happen to be that linear, I think, in practice. So we tried to really
No.
be careful about
And
staying away
and
from things.
what is still ripening on the vine also has kind of like a, hey, what's in gestation? What do I not mess with? What is a process that's in play here?
Yeah.
Just
What can I take my fingers off of, right? And just let it be.
which
Yeah.
is very, very hard to do. I've stumbled onto something else I want to point out. I had wondered why the walnut was the
Mm. The
uh,
ace of
ace of
swords.
swords, but now it becomes really obvious. Walnut looks like a brain.
Yes.
The way you have it up there in that would you like to ride in my magical balloon? I've just aged myself there.
Exactly.
That's brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, walnuts, this is the benefit of having a nutritionist on your team. Those are good for your brains. So a little bit of a double
Mhm.
meaning there too.
A little bit of a double joke. A lot of little jokes here, which I particularly like.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Blue cheese. This is the Nine of Swords. So the card of fear and nightmares, and the idea that false events are appearing real. And of course, it's meant to evoke the idea of the Jaws poster.
Uh-huh.
Did
Yeah.
you notice? Did you have the Jaws poster? Yeah, it's kind of
Oh,
like,
yeah, you can kinda hear it.
yeah.
Yep, 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 there it is. Um, well, we still have a little time. I'm wondering, are there well, it's like asking what's your favorite child. Are there cards you're particularly fond of or have found to be surprisingly useful?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a quick little look at these here.
And while you're looking, I want to tell everyone I own more than 1,000 decks, and this is the first one that's ever sent a corkscrew along with the deck. Bonus points.
And that
And not a chintzy one either. This is a
nope, it's a good one, and it has a quote on it actually from a Thelma and Louise. It's a Thelma and Louise quote. Everything we got to lose is gone anyway. We leaned a lot on movies and quotes and songs, and I'm actually looking now for the card there it is. Crickets. Crickets is has a lot. That's actually the scene that is where they went off the Grand Canyon in the movie Thelma and Louise, and you can see the little like dust trail off the back of the cricket. So the idea of this card, the 10 of Swords, is that there's really nowhere to go except Mars. Like we're going off the cliff and we are now having to eat crickets. Whatever life was previously, it is now that we receive protein from crickets. It's kind of the idea. This card, I think, really became, a little bit of a joke internally for the three of us, because when you pull crickets, we know when we pull the 10 of Swords, okay, I have to do something differently. I've reached the end of a process here, and now I have to do something a different way. And the idea of what it would mean if like all of our food came from crickets that you instantly get when you read this description really helps you metabolize what that might mean in your real life right now. You're like, oh, I have to do something like, it's really helped me make the leap. Oh, so no pun intended, between what's going on in my life and the change that I might make in order to, move through to the next evolutionary cycle. So this one's been really helpful for me. Love crickets. It's also ruled by the sun in Gemini. So yeah, I think
card.
Sun in Gemini.
I was wondering, maybe we could pull some cards.
Yeah, I thought so. That sounds great. Do you already have some ideas or?
Well, I'm open.
Okay. I was thinking, since it is a new moon in Leo, but also, blessed with the timing of a Mercury retrograde, that it's kind of an interesting time. And I'm definitely on this is your, you know everything I'm saying and more in terms of the astrological pieces of what's going on right now. But the idea of starting something new in a time of reflecting, and as you said, using all the RE words, right? Reframing, reviewing, goes on and on. I thought about maybe some cards to support us in that process of, what does it mean to have this new moon kind of, on the heels or right with Mercury retrograde, and what could be supportive to us this month.
I love it. However many you feel like.
All right. Okay. However many I feel like. Okay. Well, then I'm going to say 2, because I think once we get into a ton of cards, it can be a little bit hard to wrap our heads around it unless we're going to, all journal about it for 30 minutes, which I don't know that we all have time to do, right?
So, I don't think anyone will do that.
Exactly. So I'm going to keep it relatively simple, and we'll give ourselves 2 cards that are here as tools to support us, things that can support us during this Mercury retrograde and this moon cycle that we have just started, which began in Leo. It's going to be a big full moon this month too, huh?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. I didn't shuffle and show you how pretty the copper gilded edges are, but they are.
They're
nice.
Gorgeous.
All right. Kathy, will you help me and tell me when I'm done shuffling here?
Okay.
Okay.
You're done.
All right. Oh, we got a flyer. Don't you love that? Fondue.
Oh.
Fondue flew out of the deck.
Cheesy goodness.
Yep. And our second one, oh wow, this is really cool. Pie. So check this out, because these are both 10s.
Uh-huh.
So fondue is the 10 of cups, and pie is the 10 of pentacles. So these are actually both the 10s of what we may call the feminine parts of the tarot. We have the earth and the water. So these particular cards are, I think, asking us as tools here to really look at the big picture. So these are asking us to take a step back, look at the big picture. So as a tool here, when we start to get maybe into the micro of it all, fondue specifically is saying, what little moments are available here that are joyous? It's asking us to really honor the little ways that we can be lit up and how important those are, right? I always think about the lighting in a room at just like the perfect time of day. It's a small thing. It's a free thing, but when you get this like certain ray of light through a particular window in a room that you frequent, and you just love it, right? To really recognize how powerful that is. Maybe it is getting to pet an animal that you take care of, and really being with for a moment, how joyous and sweet that is, or another loved one that you are with, being cared for or caring for. Certainly, it's the idea of fondue is that these are really simple ingredients here. This is kind of funky bread and weird cut up pickles and stuff that we're going to dip into cheese, from a half open, a bottle of wine that's already been mostly drunk that's going to be dissolved into some cheese. It's not about super fancy things or super difficult things. So it's really taking a moment to honor those simple pleasures in life.
And you have to interact with it.
And to interact, that's
You
right.
have
To
interact with it, or you don't eat.
Yeah, and really let it make you smile. Really let it do that to you. And then pie is going to ask us, I think, if I think about how is this a tool for this Mercury retrograde, I would say this, so not only are we going to go back and review and potentially, have things brought to our attention that we don't want to have brought to our attention, that we need to have our oil changed, that we bought tickets to the wrong place, that our internet is not, our internet system is not set up the way that it needs to be, whatever the thing is that we have to fix. I would say the message here is that when we go back and we review and we fix, whatever it is that we're doing is helping us in our soul work, like our big job here, the reason that we came. And it seems just so annoying to have to, get pulled over because a headlight is out or whatever, be late to something. But I think how we react in those moments, and specifically the little wrongs that we right, the mistakes that we edit in this time are part of a bigger picture for us, a bigger picture of really why we're here. So I think both of these are really asking us to chill the F out, look at the big picture, two tens that are really warm and inviting, and really encouraging. Both of these cards, I think, are really loving and encouraging and asking us to really look at the big picture and think more positively about it as well.
And that pie certainly indicates that there's something very tasty if you face it.
Yes, thank you for that. This is Kathy, now that this thing is born out into the world after, 6 years of working on it, it's beyond magical for us to hear from other people, their interpretations. I mean, it's very humbling.
Well, they have their own consciousness.
Yeah, they do.
Your baby is an independent being now. So would you tell people where they can find you and your deck?
Absolutely. So on our website, caciopepetarot.com, and on Instagram, and we are just starting to play around with, what a strategy looks like for getting this into local bookstores and whatnot. So hopefully you'll see us in the flesh, but definitely come and follow us on Instagram. We're having a lot of fun there. Definitely our humorous side is coming through. So that's a fun place for us to engage with folks.
And you spotlight individual cards there so people would get
spotlight all the cards. Absolutely. Sometimes we do, because of my astrology background, sometimes we will talk about, Venus going into Virgo is ruled by the 9 of Pentacles, which is table for one. And we'll talk about that and get into it. So yeah, we'll definitely deep dive.
It's an essay in my book, Table for One.
What? It is?
It's about the joy of eating by yourself. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, maybe we have to send you a print of that card. It's a really,
I would accept that.
It's a really cool one. It's a motorcycle on the coast of Lake Como, on the shores of Lake Como, and the idea is
they could slingshot pebbles into George Clooney's house. Okay.
Yeah. So we link this with the energy of Venus and Virgo, of sitting with yourself and just out of earshot of George Clooney, of course, and really being with all that you've harvested and all that you've created.
Well, this has been delightful. I'm so glad that you came. The deck has just been released. I got my copy. I ordered it a long time ago. I got it on Saturday evening.
We got it to you in by the skin of our teeth. I'm so glad.
I wasn't sure I was going to actually have seen it before we had this scheduled. So it was worth it. Like, whoa, look how pretty it is. I mean, the graphics and the design, it's very, very nice. So
Thank you. Thank you.
I wish you tremendous success with this. I'm certainly talking it up. Oh, I know where I'm taking it. There's a southern area near me, a place that's Venetian with incredible wines, and they have yeah. I have been known to read cards, so they remember me. So I will take this step there.
Can we go right now? Oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
I would gladly take you. Please bilocate to northern New Jersey, and
We just had our family out from northern New Jersey. Well, we're sending you love there. Please go and have a delicious glass of wine and something so yummy and tasty. Thank you so much, Kathy, for having us.
Oh, I'm so glad. I wish you great success, and everyone, just keep your wits about you this month. And Chill the F Out is actually a simmer pot made by a company called Magic Witch Balls. I put this on my Facebook page and also on my YouTube page. I think Instagram also. It's a real thing. Remember, you can find my forecasts at ontimes.com, which also has my guide to handling Mercury retrograde. And on my website, empowermentunlimited.net, and on my YouTube channel, Professional Aquarian. That's pretty much it. So thanks a lot. Everyone have a tasty time. Go have fondue. Go have pie. I think I want pie now.
That was great.
Thanks very, very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Bye, everyone.